The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows against the ancient stone walls as the young tribesmen stepped forward, heart pounding. The air was thick with the scent of burning herbs and something bitter, a brew that awaits him. All around, voices chanted low and rhythmic, summoning spirits from beyond. As the sacred smoke curled around him, he felt the world he knew begin to fade, and the ancestral knowledge is poured into his soul. Long before synthetic molecules and clinical trials, before the rise of modern medicine or monotheistic empires, the human species encountered something wild, sacred, and transformative. The psychedelic experience. From the rainforests of Mesoamerica, the vast Australian outback, to the caves of prehistoric Europe, mind-altering substances were not fringe novelties. They were woven into the very fabric of ritual, medicine, and meaning. This is the forgotten legacy of ancient psychedelics, a deep cross-cultural history of consciousness exploration that shaped how early societies understood reality, death, and the divine. Some of the oldest visual evidence of psychedelic use in human history can be found in the Tassili Plateau of southern Algeria, a vast and otherworldly landscape dotted with caves and ancient rock shelters. Here in the heart of the Sahara, researchers have uncovered cave paintings estimated to be over 6,000 years old, many of which depict anthropomorphic figures in trance-like poses, surrounded by or even merging with large mushroom-shaped forms. One of the most iconic of these images shows a human-like figure with mushrooms sprouting from its body or held aloft like ritual objects, suggesting not only ingestion, but symbolic reverence. These aren't casual depictions of food. They appear stylized, intentional, spiritual. The figures often seem to be dancing or floating, their limbs abstracted or extended in exaggerated ways, hinting at altered states of consciousness or visionary experiences. Some scholars propose these depictions illustrate shamanic transformation, a merging of human and plant, of physical form and spirit realm. The species likely used was Psilocybe myri, a potent mushroom native to the region. Ingesting it would have caused intense visual hallucinations, emotional shifts, and the sense of communication with unseen forces, hallmarks of what modern researchers now identify as entheogenic experiences. These prehistoric artworks challenge the notion that ancient societies were purely practical or survival-driven. Instead, they suggest a sophisticated symbolic and spiritual life, where the natural world, especially psychoactive plants and fungi, played a central role in cosmology and ritual. Nowhere on Earth was the spiritual use of psychedelics more ritually and culturally integrated than in ancient Mesoamerica. Among civilizations such as the Aztecs, Zapotecs, Mixtecs, and Mazatecs, the ingestion of psychoactive plants was not peripheral, it was sacred. At the heart of this tradition was a group of potent fungi known collectively as Teonanacatl, a Nahuatl term meaning flesh of the gods. These were psilocybin-containing mushrooms, used not for escapism, but for divine communion. Consuming them was to enter the presence of the gods, to receive visions, omens, and messages from the unseen world. Ceremonies were typically led by curanderos, spiritual healers who were part doctor, priest, and psychonaut. The rituals involved more than just ingestion. They included chanting, rhythmic drumming, incense offerings, and sacred tobacco smoke. Participants would fast beforehand, purify themselves, and enter a heightened, ritualized space. The experience was carefully structured, guided and interpreted through traditional cosmological frameworks. Spanish chroniclers arriving in the 16th century were both fascinated and disturbed by what they saw. One Franciscan friar, Bernardino de Sahagún, wrote that mushroom eaters would be overcome with visions, laughter, or deep weeping, and sometimes claimed to speak with the gods. To the indigenous practitioners, this was not hallucination, it was revelation. The cultural role of psychedelics extended beyond mushrooms. The Mazatecs of Oaxaca revered a potent mint-like plant called Salvia divinorum, known locally as Ska Maria pastora. Endemic to the Sierra Mazateca, it was used in healing rituals and soul retrieval, especially when mushrooms were unavailable. The effects of salvia are intensely dissociative, often described as entering entirely different realms or becoming non-human entities. In traditional settings, it was chewed or brewed as an infusion and consumed in darkness, in complete silence, to receive messages from ancestors or spirits. Even earlier, the Olmecs, considered the mother culture of Mesoamerica, left behind figurines and carvings believed to represent toads, possibly of the species Bufo alvarius. This toad secretes a powerful substance containing 5-MeO-DMT, one of the most potent naturally occurring psychedelics. While direct evidence of Olmec use is still debated, the symbolism strongly suggests an early awareness of entheogenic animals and their visionary effects. Across these cultures, the psychedelic experience was not isolated. It was embedded in agriculture, astronomy, healing, and statecraft. These mushrooms grew after the rains, symbolizing fertility and divine cycles. Rituals were timed with lunar phases or seasonal changes. Visions obtained through Tiononacatl or salvia were consulted before major decisions, be it curing a disease, resolving a conflict, or interpreting a bad omen. Deep in the Amazon's green heart, a sacred brew, ayahuasca, the vine of the soul, has for centuries connected indigenous communities to healing, spirit, and cosmic wisdom. Composed of two plants, Banisteriopsis caapi, a vine containing MAO inhibitors, and leaves of Psychotria viridis that harbor DMT, the brew is chemically extraordinary. The vine prevents the gut from breaking down DMT, making the visionary compound active when ingested. This dual plant synergy is unique to ayahuasca. It requires both to unlock the medicine's profound effects. Among the most renowned ayahuasca traditions are those of the Shipibo people from Peru's Ucayali region. In their ceremonies, ayahuasca is woven into every aspect of spiritual and daily life. Shamans, or onaya, guide participants with icaros, sacred songs that establish energetic balance and serve as sonic medicine throughout the ceremony. The visual patterns seen in the ayahuasca realm are mirrored in the Shipibo textiles, known as kene, geometric motifs painted or embroidered on fabrics, ceramics, and even bodies. These designs are not merely decorative, they are the visual language of spiritual vision, encoding pathways, energies, and cosmic structures. Shipibo women artists pass these patterns down through generations, often first glimpsed in Shinan, dream visions, or ayahuasca journeys. Anthropologist Luisa Elvira Belende explains that kene is experienced through dreams and visions and acquired through the ritual use of powerful plants, such as ayahuasca, highlighting how textile art is a tangible reflection of inner spiritual landscapes. Ceremonies unfold in the night with precision and sacred intent. Participants sit in a circle, the brew passed carefully, and the shaman begins the Icaros. Melodies believed to chart the shifting energies of spirit realms. These rituals aim for healing, physical, emotional, ancestral. They are deeply communal, rooted in reciprocity with the land and collective well-being. Today, ayahuasca rituals have exploded in international popularity. By 2019, Peru's Iquitos region alone hosted over 70 retreat centers, with 15,000 to 20,000 international participants annually, generating $17.5 million in revenue. This boom, however, carries a double edge. While providing income and attention, it also introduces cultural and ecological threats. Sacred rituals risk commodification. Participants often bypass traditional protocols, while communities struggle to protect their healing heritage. Ethical concerns include spiritual dilution, intellectual property violation, and the rise of sham retreats, led by untrained facilitators. Ecologically, the demand for ayahuasca vines and chacruna leaves has triggered deforestation and habitat loss, especially in Brazil's Acre state, where ceremonial plants are over-harvested and chainsaws echo in sacred groves. Some communities have responded by cultivating these plants on church-owned farms, aiming to reduce pressure on wild populations. But as demand rises, oversight lags. Many retreats operate in the informal economy without regulation or environmental safeguards. In response, indigenous voices are calling for reciprocal relationships where tourists not only consume healing but support land rights, cultural preservation, and community well-being. As Nina Gualinga and Eli Virquina, Ecuadorian land defenders, argue, without justice and intentional respect, ayahuasca tourism becomes extractive, endangering both cultural integrity and biodiversity. In every cup of the sacred brew lies a question. Will we take the journey only inward, or also forward, with care for the world that gave it to us? Modern discussions on psychedelics tend to leave out the Eleusinian Mysteries, despite their historical importance in ancient Greek spiritual practice. For nearly 2,000 years, just outside of Athens in a town called Eleusis, people gathered for a sacred ceremony that promised transformation, healing, and, perhaps most incredibly, the end of the fear of death. Yeah, well, that was the sales pitch. But it worked. Some of the most brilliant minds of the classical world were initiates. Plato, Cicero, and even Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. Every year, thousands walked the sacred road from Athens to Eleusis, taking part in rites so secret that revealing them was punishable by death. Yet, what little we do know paints a picture that's deeply psychedelic and deeply human. At the heart of the mystery was a drink called kikion. On the surface, it sounds simple, a barley-based brew mixed with mint. But several scholars, including ethnobotanist Terence McKenna and researchers like Ruck, Wasson, and Hoffman, have proposed that kikion likely contained ergot, a fungus that grows on grain and contains lysergic acid amides, chemical relatives of modern LSD. And here's where it gets wild. This wasn't recreational tripping. This was a guided, sacred experience, framed within a mythological journey, specifically the myth of Demeter and Persephone. Participants reenacted Persephone's descent into the underworld and her eventual return, symbolizing death, transformation, and rebirth. Those who went through the Eleusinian rituals spoke of seeing something so powerful, so life-altering. They were no longer afraid to die. Plato hinted that the soul's immortality was revealed there. Cicero called it the most exceptional and divine thing that Athens ever produced. What happened in the inner sanctum the telesterion, remains speculative. But ancient testimonies suggest a shared visionary experience, one that was spiritual, symbolic, and maybe even chemically induced. The ceremonies were protected not just by law, but by a deep cultural reverence. People didn't want to spoil the mystery. It was sacred. And then it disappeared. The rise of Christianity and the fall of pagan temples led to its closure in the 4th century CE. But the fact that it lasted almost 2 millennia and that it attracted some of the greatest thinkers of the ancient world should tell us something. This wasn't a fringe practice. It was a cornerstone of Western spirituality, hiding in plain sight. Today, as the modern world rediscovers psychedelics for healing and growth, the Eleusinian Mysteries stand as a powerful reminder. We've been here before. Ancient Greece may have understood, in ways we're just beginning to reclaim, that chemistry and divinity aren't separate, but part of the same sacred dance. In the heart of the Americas, a small cactus with big spiritual impact has shaped ceremony and healing for thousands of years. The peyote. Peyote is slow-growing and only blooms in parts of southern Texas and northern Mexico. For millennia, it has been used by indigenous groups, like the Huichol, during pilgrimages to sacred sites such as Wirikuta, a desert shrine where peyote grows wild. Tribe members trek hundreds of kilometers, often fasting and carrying tobacco, to gather the cactus and seek spiritual renewal. In the late 19th century, the Native American church emerged, formalizing peyote rituals among the Kiowa, Comanche, Navajo, and more. Today, it's practiced by over 400,000 people across 50 tribes. The church blends ancestral beliefs with Christianity, often viewing peyote itself as peyote spirit, a living entity carrying divine power. Ceremonies usually happen in teepees or hogans, with a crescent-shaped altar and a sacred fire. They stretch all through the night, guided by a roadman, a spiritual leader responsible for ritual order. The peyote, either ground into a tea or consumed slowly, is taken in measured doses. You pray with it and take little sips like medicine, says Comanche leader Morgan Tosi. Music plays a central role. Peyote songs accompanied by rattles and water drums weave through the night, each song a vessel for healing prayers, ancestral contact, or communal blessings. A core aspect is the harvest as pilgrimage. Before cutting the cactus, harvesters seek blessing through prayer and ceremony. Once we eat it, the sacredness opens the spiritual eye, explains Red Cloud of the Navajo Nation. The plant reveals itself in the wild, signaling its readiness. The sacramental use of peyote is legally protected under U.S. federal law since 1994, thanks to amendments to the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. But despite legal safeguards, peyote faces ecological threats. Overharvesting, land development, and a surge in spiritual tourism have pushed it toward local scarcity, particularly in South Texas. In response, the Indigenous Peyote Conservation Initiative and the Native American Church have acquired land in Hebronville to cultivate peyote sustainably. Their goal? To protect the medicine under Native stewardship, while ensuring its availability for generations to come. Peyote is not a recreational drug. It's a sacrament, a spiritual bridge between the earthly and sacred. Beyond the more widely studied regions, a trail of psychedelic use weaves quietly through nearly every ancient culture on Earth. In Egypt, the psychoactive legacy reaches back over 6,000 years. Archaeologists have found seeds of henbane and traces of DMT-yielding acacia in early tomb sites and desert temples. The sacred blue lotus, used in wine and tea, was prized for its mild euphoria and erotic stimulation. It features heavily entombed murals and burial goods, suggesting ritual and afterlife significance. Combined with incense and chanting, these substances likely created trance-like states for priests and initiates seeking contact with the divine. In Vedic South Asia, Soma was more than myth. It was worshipped as a divine being. The Rig Veda hymns describe its ability to confer immortality and divine vision. While its true recipe is lost, scholars suggest it may have blended ephedra, cannabis, poppy, and mushrooms. Consumed during fire sacrifices and priestly chants, Soma wasn't merely a drink. It was a portal to the divine. Its memory lingers in Indian texts long after its use faded. In ancient Indochina and China proper, texts like the Shennong Benkaojing catalog plants like black henbane, pokeweed, and even spirit mushrooms, believed to reveal demons or ancestors. Early Taoists sought these substances to induce dreams and visions that bridged the mundane and celestial realms. They were not for everyone. Only the trained or initiated could navigate their power. Such practices formed the foundation of mystical alchemical traditions that persisted for centuries. In Australia's outback, indigenous Bora ceremonial grounds aligned with the Milky Way suggest celestial initiations. While no chemical residues survive, oral traditions speak of dreamtime journeys, animal spirits, and metaphysical teachings passed through vision-like trance states. Body paint, dance, and sacred song acted as guides. While not always plant-induced, these altered states reveal a psychedelic worldview encoded in cultural memory. In Menorca's Escariches Cave, sealed over 3,000 years ago, archaeologists found dyed human hair stored in carved wooden containers. Chemical analysis revealed scopolamine, atropine, and ephedrine, alkaloids found in henbane, mandrake, and ephedra. These substances alter vision, perception, and awareness. The care in storage and symbolic isolation suggests a controlled ceremonial context, perhaps funerary or initiatory. It stands as Europe's earliest direct evidence of structured psychoactive ritual. Across deserts, forests, and mountains, one truth echoes. The human relationship with visionary plants is ancient and widespread. These substances were never casual. They were doorways to the spirit of creation. This is not a call to consume them, but a reminder to honor their cultural roots. Psychedelics, in their oldest form, are stories of meaning, not escape. Symbols, shadows, and sacred scripts, each one a key to the epic unknown. Thank you for watching.